Ever wondered how to transform a classic synth track into a modern cover? Hello there, I'm Thomas from She Died in a Parking Lot. I recently did a cover of the 70s classic Chase by Giorgio Moroder. In this video, I'll break down the songwriting process for you and show you how to go from this to this. Let's open the session, shall we? First thing first, I wanted to show you where my process started. I imported the song right there in Logic and I started playing some synth right there, so that got me the basic melodies and sequences. So I had a place to start with, so it's right there. You get the idea, it was just to get me started, to have a basic structure for verse, bridge and something to start building from. Now let's open the final cleaner session for the rest of the video. Here we are, you can see the structure on top if you want to follow where we are on the song, and there will be also timestamp on the video to help you with that. Let me show you first what I did with the verses. I chose to keep a verse structure very similar to the original one because I think the melody is just so iconic and I wanted to keep that. All my verses start with the same simple elements, so you'll find the drums, the basses with the sequence, so I have this bass that actually follows the guitar riff. And obviously the synth. So all together. Let me show you the synth that does the melody. There are actually 3 different synths. I have like the question synthesizer. And then for the other parts, I have one which is more like a bell, which is layered with another synth. So together. And with the first one. And I have a second part for the verses that all have a bit more intensity. For the first verse right there, let's loop that. I have another guitar coming in. And I also have another synthesizer that plays all the melody this time. On the second part, on the second verse, I have also a bit more elements coming in. So I have some percussion to complement the drums. There's a shaker and some like Latin types of percussions. It's a bit low in the mix, but it gives really another groove to the song and I really like that. So with the percussion. And there's also a sequence synthesizers. It's subtle as well, but I really like the sparkle you got in that part of the song. And for the second part of the last verse or outro, it's basically like everything at the same time. I also added a few bassist instruments that I introduced in the metal break, but we'll come back to that later. Let's just check the outro for now. Those instruments are also low in the mix, but they really complement the guitars and add a different feel to the beat. And that's what I really liked about this production. Let's hear the end right there, with and without those basses. Just a bit more bass and a bit more saturation. It's a bit grittier. I like that. Have you ever tried covering a classic synth track, or do you have a favorite one? Please let me know in the comments. Now let's go back to the beginning to see what I came up with for the intro. I also really took a lot of inspiration from the original song. So it starts right there with the drums and the bass. There is also a synth that does this noise effects. Then I build the rest with the shaker, the guitar bass, and like the mean gated bass. Following that, I introduced the guitar and the lead for the first time. Then you go to the first verse. After the first verse, you have like an interverse kind of part, or a bridge, you call it what you prefer. And then I made a callback to the bass sequence from the intro with the guitars. So I have a first one who does the riff. Then it's doubled an octave up with this guitar. And there's also one in the center that was a low octave type of guitars, but I think I just kept lowering it in the mix because it was taking too much place. So it just stays there because, well, it's there. It adds a bit of texture to those guitars, but in the mix it's completely wrong. After the second verse, you'll find a bridge. And for that I did the same thing as before. I played the sequence and the melodies on top of the original songs. I kept those. So this is the synth bass right there. And the melodies. And I built around those parts with new elements. I wanted this section to be a bit more calm than the one we had before, and the metal breaks that comes after to create a bit more of contrast. So I'm going to show you what I did with the guitars. So I have an octave guitar right there. I also have an arpeggio guitar with a bit of shimmer on it. And a strummed clean guitar. The bass follows the guitar, and it's a really simple line, so it doesn't overthrow the other bass sequence. And that way I keep the bass foundation for the song. And that part ends on the break. And basically the break goal is just to make the transition between what came before and the metal break. I think that part was written after the metal break, that way it was easier to link both parts. The first part of the break creates a stop to the song we have so far and restart it a bit like the intro. As you can see, there is another guitar right there, but it's just a long note that is the octave up of the other guitar. Let me show you that right there. It just add a bit more intensity to really break the song. There's also this effect which is like a reversed clap. And that metronome effect, which is really low on the mix, but just put more impact on the claps. Well, not impact, but more like attack. Then the second part is just the kick on all beat with the bass following it and a bit of filtering on the other synth to create a bit of movement. I then put a stop to everything in the song to create even more contrast and add a bit of sound design. I like to have a narrative direction somewhere in the song that I can influence with sound design or effects. It gives a bit more depth and context since I usually do instrumental music. Here it's a bit subtle, but it gives more sense with the video music I released a bit earlier. And you can find a lot of this idea in a lot of my songs. So you can find fireworks in Fireworks. There are flying cars in Like Tears in Rains. There's also sports car sound in Is Coming. There's a murder scene at the beginning of In Our Darkest Hour, etc., etc. What's a metal song without a metal breakdown? Here the metal part of the song is made of 4 parts. The first one introduces the main riff, the second one takes things slower and gets another guitar layer. The third one is the full blast metal riff, and it ends with a callback to the original bass sequence. Since there is no metal breaks in the original one, I started the idea with the guitars and then put some more synths to enhance them. Let me show you the first part. Let's hear the guitar first. There is also like a core sample that's underneath to give it more a bit like a evil vibe. Then on the second part, there is also a choir, but it's more like gated, so it introduces a bit more rhythm, and you'll find there is also a drum loop that adds a different vibe to the song. Let's hear those. And then there is the second guitar layer. Let's loop that right there. One simple way to add more intensity to your guitars is just to quad track it. So you have 2 guitars on one side and 2 on the other one. Then you have the full metal break right there. Let's hear the guitars. There's also a bass that complements the guitar right there. And finally, the fourth part, I introduced back the percussion section. And the guitar are just playing like the original bass sequence. Here I also made a riser with the synth, just to get from the end of the part to another one. Then we go back to the final verse, and I chose to treat the song like a movie show episode or a movie and ends it on a cliffhanger. So I cut everything and the melody finished on its first note on the simple bell, and there's just the noise effects that goes underneath. And that's it. As you can see, for the structure on top right there and with some colors on the regions, I went with something more unconventional for it. So there's no real verse-chorus situation. It's more inclined towards something a bit more reminiscent of the original song, but in a shorter way, putting the accent on the iconic melody that I love so much, and putting my spin on it, of course, with a bit more metal. On top of everything, or here in the bottom right there is also a bit of sound effects and sound design that are here to create some transition between the parts and create a better continuity during the songs. They are from sound banks I own and also from Logic, so let me show you a few. Here's the one from the bridge with the breath thing. The riser before the metal break. And the last one before the final verse. Coming up next, I have a very special video where I'll be diving into how I mix that song, sharing more production tips and ideas for you. In the meantime, please subscribe and drop me a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the cover or any question you may have. Thank you for joining me today. I'll see you soon.